everybody. So good to see you guys tonight. I can see you kind of through the smoke for the lights, but so good to see you guys tonight. And welcome to our first young adult night of 2022. So we're excited. I feel like I'm that kid, in school when the date changed and it took you like a month to, actually write the new year on your paper. I don't know, anybody else do that? That's me. I don't know if that's just me or if there's anyone else. A couple other people, okay. Well, everyone, welcome tonight. If I haven't had a chance to meet you, my name's Chris, and I'm the young adult director here at Definition Church, and this is our monthly young adult event, and so glad that you guys are here. And I want to kick off this message tonight by asking a really simple question, okay? And look, we got a good-sized crowd tonight, but you can still shout back at me, okay? So I want to hear what you say. But the question is, have you ever had, maybe it was when you were a kid, or maybe it was more recently, but have you ever had someone spread a rumor about you that wasn't true? Anybody ever had that experience? Yeah, some people are like, there's rumors out there right now. Yeah, it may have been when you were a kid. I remember like in elementary school, middle school, high school, college, graduate school. I remember, people are like, oh, this guy, we heard he's got a crush on this girl, and this girl's got a crush on this guy. And, in middle school there, I had to deal with all sort of rumors about me. So in middle school, I was a lot shorter and a lot chubbier, and my interest as a 12-year-old was musical theater. And so that was just not a good combination. And so, there were rumors out there about me, And so, but, maybe you've had that experience, or if you haven't, and another experience that many of us have probably had is, have you ever heard a lot of rumors about somebody only to actually meet them and find out that they were a different way than you expected? Anybody had an experience like that? Maybe you heard something about somebody and you heard that they were, that they were really just not a great person, and that's what the rumor was. And then you got to know them and you realized, wow, like this person's really, really cool. I don't know if you guys ever had an experience like that. I know that I have. Or maybe it was the opposite effect, right? Maybe it was somebody who everybody said was really great, and then you got to know them and you're like, I don't know if this is someone that I want to know. Maybe even went on a date with them, but so we won't go there, okay? We won't go there. But whatever the case is, rumors are never great, right? And I can only imagine how celebrities feel. I mean, literally, think about it. There are people who make their livelihood off of spreading rumors about celebrities. I mean, there's like, the TV shows and the magazines and the, whatever else there is. There's like any Real Housewives people here. I know there's some out there. I know there's some of you. And we get into that. Jonathan, you're not my man. But we get into that, right? And so there's people whose whole livelihood is based off of this. And sometimes, I feel for the celebrities. It's like they can't even go out and get lunch somewhere without some sort of new rumor about their private life going around and being made up. But, I don't think that celebrities are the only people that feel that way. In fact, I think that Jesus and that God sometimes maybe even feels that way. That there are a lot of different rumors out there about him that don't necessarily reflect who he really is. And I don't know if you've noticed, but in our culture today, there's a lot of different words out there about who Jesus is, about who God is, about what the Bible is. There's rumors out there about the people that God likes and the people that God hates. There's rumors out there about the way to have a relationship with God. Rumors like it's all about how hard you can try. It's all about how good you can be. Rumors like God loves this group of people, but this group of people he just doesn't like. Rumors like this type of people can have a relationship with God and these type of people can't. And I just wonder if Jesus ever gets frustrated about that. I think he does. And I think that some of those rumors have made their way into the church. I think some of those rumors have made their way into our lives. In fact, I think that there are people in our generation who have rejected Jesus, not based off of who he is, but based off of a rumor about who he is. That they heard something about him. That maybe even a Christian person said something to them about him. And they have rejected Jesus, not off of who he is, but off of a rumor of who he is. And so I'm saying all that because you may or may not know that tonight we are starting a new series that these events will follow for the next couple months. And that series is called Rumor Has It. Rumor Has It. Yeah, it's kind of like the Adele song. I know everybody gets a little tune in their head. So it's not about Adele, and we do like that song, but that's not why we're doing it. The reason that we're doing it is because I don't know about you, but I don't want a rumor covered up Jesus. I don't know about you, but I don't want a faith that is tainted by philosophy that's not even biblical. Right? And I don't think I'm the only one in our generation who feels this way. I want the real thing. If there's a God that exists, if Jesus came and walked the earth, I want to know him not for who culture paints him out to be. I want to know him for who he really is. And so what we're going to do in this series is each month, over the next several months, we're going to break down a different rumor that's been there about Christianity. And I believe that together, as young adults and Definition Church in our community, in our city, what we're going to be able to do is, one, we're going to be able to get a clearer picture of who Jesus actually is. And I think we're going to be able to share that with our city. I mean, are you guys with me? Do you guys want that? Do you want that in your life? Come on, we want the real thing, right? That's why we're here. Okay, so we're doing that tonight, and we're going to start, and we're going to jump right into it. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 is where we're going to start tonight. So if you have your Bibles, you can turn there. We also will have it up on the screens for you. So we got that here for you. So 2 Corinthians chapter 11, starting in verse 24. Here's what it says. It says, 5 different times the Jewish leaders gave me 39 lashes. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Once I spent a whole night and a day adrift at sea. I have traveled on many long journeys. I have faced danger from rivers and from robbers. I have faced danger from my own people, the Jews, as well as the Gentiles. I have faced danger in the cities, in the deserts, and on the seas. And I have faced danger from men who claim to be believers but are not. I have worked hard and long, enduring many sleepless nights. I have been hungry and thirsty and have often gone without food. I have shivered in the cold without enough clothing to keep me warm. Then besides all this, I have the daily burden of my concern for all the churches. Who is weak without my feeling that weakness? Who is led astray and I do not burn with anger? And you read that passage and we wonder who is describing that experience. And it's not William Wallace, who if you don't know is the guy from Braveheart, and that's who I think about when I hear that. That is the Apostle Paul, and what he's doing in that passage is he's saying, this is what my experience has been like as I've been obedient to following Jesus. He's saying, man, he's saying, I have had sleepless nights. Man, I've had times when it was cold. I've had times when I didn't have enough. He's portraying the extreme difficulty that he went through. And that's in the book of 2 Corinthians. Now, if you go back to the beginning of that same book, this is in the first chapter of that book. Here's what he says, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 8 through 9. Listen to this. We have this on the screens for you as well. It says, we think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble that we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and overwhelmed beyond our ability to endure. And we thought that we would never live through it. In fact, we expected to die. He's saying, so what's happening here, to give you a little bit of context, 2 Corinthians is a letter that the Apostle Paul, who was an early Christian missionary in the early church, wrote to the church in Corinth. And what he is trying to accomplish in this portion of the letter, in both of these pieces, is he's trying to help them understand what he's gone through. Why? Well, because I think that there was probably a rumor going around then similar to the one that we see today. And that's the first rumor that we're going to talk about in the first month of this series. And it's something that I've heard so much that it sounds common and that sounds so good. It seems like it should be true. I mean, it seems like it should be right, but it's actually not. And this is that God won't give me more than I can handle. God won't give me more than I can handle. And we say that all the time, right? Maybe you've heard it. Maybe people have used it kind of as a word of encouragement to you when you were going through something difficult. They say, well, man, it's okay. That God's not going to give you more than you can handle. And though maybe we're going through something difficult, we say, well, it's okay. Well, God's not going to give me more than I can handle. But the problem is that this actually isn't true. You see, it's actually not biblical. That idea, normally when people say that God can't give me more than I can handle, normally they're talking about, or if they have a passage to validate that, it's normally 1 Corinthians 10:13. And that verse says this. It says, the temptations in your life are no different from what others experience. And God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure. So that's normally where people kind of get that idea from. But the thing is, that verse is not actually talking about, it's actually being very specific. It's talking about temptation to sin. And so what that is saying is that God will not allow you to be tempted to sin more than you are able to say no to. So we could never find ourselves in a position where we say, well, this temptation was just so difficult. This was just so intense that I was not able to say no. I just had to do it. No, God's saying, no, I'm not going to do that to you. You will always have more strength than you need to say no to the temptation of sin. But what this verse is not saying, that we, as followers of Jesus and as humans on this earth, it's not saying that we will not find ourselves in positions, in circumstances, in relationships, in states of emotion that are altogether more than we can handle in our own strength. And so I want to break this rumor down, not only because it's not true, but it's actually dangerous. And below it lies some things that I think have the potential to really dilute our relationship with Jesus. You see, here's what's true, and I want to make it really clear tonight, is that God will give you more than you can handle. God will give you more than you can handle. He will. And we see it all throughout Scripture, right? We see that here in 2 Corinthians when Paul's saying, he's literally saying, I was outside of myself. I was at the end of myself. I had nothing left. And you see it all in the Bible, in the Old Testament. God gave Abraham a promise that he was going to have a child, and he was 100 years old. Well, that was more than Abraham could handle. He literally could not do that. He could not biologically, make his body go back to the good old days where that kind of stuff happened. It just wasn't going to work. It was more than he could handle. In the book of Judges, Gideon was a young man who God called to take an army of 300 people and defeat the Midianites, which were an army of literally tens of thousands of trained warriors who had been successful in combat. And God said, Gideon, take your 300 men and go and defeat them. Well, that was more than they could handle. There was no way that in their strength and their power, no matter how good they fought, that they in themselves could beat that army. Jesus gathered his disciples and he said, hey guys, I've been walking with you for a couple years now. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out. I want you to find people with diseases and heal them. I want you to preach boldly, even though people are going to be mad at you and you might not feel like you have all the wisdom to do it. I want you to cure the sick. I want you to heal blind eyes. All right, go out and do it. Well, man, that was more than any of them could handle, right? I even think about in my own life. I remember I started leading this ministry when I was 19 years old. It was in 2019, just a few years ago, and I just, honestly, when it started, we had about 20 people, and honestly, I felt in over my head all the time. And I still feel that way a lot of times, but I just remember, especially at the beginning, I just felt like there's no way I have what it takes for this. This is so much more than I can handle. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I feel like I don't know anything. It felt like it was more than I could handle. And I think about even the last couple years culturally, right? Everything that's happened with COVID and the situations that puts so many of us in. I think about how so much of that at times has just felt like more than we can handle, more than I could handle, maybe more than you can handle. I think about, the weight and the challenges of the world and culturally and what we've walked through together just as peoples and society, and all of it, if we're honest, has felt like more than we could handle. And so, yes, it's true that God will lead us at times into more than we can handle. Why? Well, it's because he wants us to experience the same thing that the Apostle Paul experienced. So I want to go back to that verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, but this time I want to read a verse further than we did last time. So 2 Corinthians 1, 8 through 10, it says, "We think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and overwhelmed beyond our ability to endure, and we thought that we would never live through it. In fact, we expected to die," and now we'll keep reading, "but as a result of being given more than we could handle, here's what happened. We stopped relying on ourselves and learned to rely on God who raises the dead." You see what happened? He said, I found myself in a place that was overwhelmingly more than I could bear. But God met me in that place. And in that place, I learned something. And he's starting his letter to this church saying, listen, guys, if you got to learn one thing, you got to learn this thing. It's that on this path of following Jesus, on this path of life, man, I'm telling you, sometimes it's going to feel like a lot more than you can handle. And he's saying, I was just there. But I learned something, and I learned that there is a help. That when you get to the place, when you're at the end of yourself, and this is what this message is about tonight, when you get to the place, when you are at the end of yourself, there is no better place where you're more positioned to experience the power of God in your life. He's saying, I was brought to the place where it was more than I could handle, and then God stepped in, and God handled it. And you see, this is the Christian life. This is the Christian life, is experiencing God's power in our weakness. And so that's the big point for tonight, and what we're going to talk about is that God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. And so, yes, there are times when God leads us into more than we can handle. But the good news is that he does it. Why? Not because he wants to, not because he's mean, not because he's not fair to us, but because he wants us to experience his power and the strength of our weakness. I want to read this and then talk about that a little bit more. This is in that same book in 2 Corinthians. And this is what Paul says after he had explained and opened this letter to them, saying, man, I experienced the power of God who rises people from the dead. He said this. He said, therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. See, it's when we find ourselves, and maybe some of you came into this place and you feel like you're in that place in life tonight. In the place where, if we're really, really honest, man, it all just feels like more than we can handle. And we start to experience that feeling of weakness. Well, Paul's saying, I learned that that's where I was the strongest. Because I learned that the God who raises the dead wants to step in and produce his strength in my weakness. And so see, this whole idea of God won't give me more than I can handle, the reason that it is dangerous is because built into that idea is a version of Christianity that is more dependent on you than it is on God. You see, I want us to get this. Built into to the idea that God won't give me more than I can handle. Well, if God won't give me more than I can handle, what that means and implies is that it is my responsibility to work harder, to be better, so that God can entrust me and give me more to handle. And in that relationship, you're the one carrying the weight, not God. And I'm just telling you that that's not the Christian life. And that when we live that way, and that when that's our faith experience, man, that is exhausting. Right? That's something that eventually we will run out of and run dry on and not have the energy for. But God's saying, what I want to do is I want to meet you in your weakness, and I want to produce my strength in your life. And this is the Christian life, is a life of dependency. Man, I mentioned how when we first started doing young adult stuff, I just remember feeling so in over my head all the time. And I remember that first summer that we started. I remember every single day I would wake up and there would just be an hour in the morning where I would just sit on the floor in my room. And I would just say, God, I don't know what to do. I feel like you've called me to this. I don't feel like I have what it takes for this. And I just need you. And I remember feeling more desperate and more dependent for God than I probably have at any other point in my life. And in that season, man, I started to experience the power of God. And so see, I want to make this really practical about how this can work its way in our life. So I have maybe the most like ratchet sermon prop ever up here tonight. I totally made this like 3 hours ago, by the way. And so, but I want to get this point across. You know, we're in this kind of New Year's season right now, right? And anybody like the New Year? I love the New Year time. You know, I love New Year's parties. They have the whole ball thing. It's fun, and you know, yeah, that's a good thing to clap for. Yes. And so I like the whole thing. And I love the idea of dreaming about the future. I love it. It's kind of like yesterday we couldn't do it, but today it's like I can have all the crazy goals I want and no one will laugh at me. Like a week ago, if I said I'm going to be in the gym every day, people go, oh, yeah, right. Today, if they say it, it's like, oh, yeah, you are. Me too. It's great. And so I love the New Year's. But here's where I think that this idea can come into play as we kick off our year. If we're not careful, what we do is we say, God, I want you to move in my life this year. I want you to do something fresh in my life this year. I want to experience something I haven't experienced before. But then what we do is we put God in this box, this really little box. And we say, okay, God, as long as within my ability or is the money and the finances to make this thing work, then yes, you can do it. And we're saying, yes, God, you can have all of me, but only as long as if it's within my budget, right? I mean, if you call me to do something or give something I don't have, well, then God, I just can't do it. And we're still holding on to that thing real tight. Or maybe it's not that, but maybe it's our comfort. And we're saying, okay, God, yes, you can have my life. You can do whatever you want to do, but don't call me to build a relationship with somebody that I don't like because that would make me uncomfortable. And so we're holding on to that thing real tight. And then, okay, we're maybe saying, okay, God, you can have my life. You can do what you want to do. But God, only please use me in areas where I feel like I have enough ability to do it. God, you know that I'm not a leader. So, I'll be the person, kind of standing behind the welcome desk, but don't make me a small group leader. That's outside of my natural abilities. I don't know if I can do that. And we're holding on to that thing, right? Or maybe it's all, this is a big one. Maybe it's our time. We're saying, yes, God, you can have my life, but please, just please let the small group only last an hour. And then I'll say yes to being in small groups. And as long as I can fit you within this little tiny bit of margin that I've made in my life, God, you can do what you want. You can do what you want. But then what we're doing is we're putting God's purpose and vision for our life in this little box that's completely dependent on us. And you see, I think we do that in our culture all the time. And we say, okay, God, you can move, you can have what you want to, only if it fits within my ability, within my comfort, within what I can handle. And you see, we like this little box. Because I can handle this little box and I can toss it around and I can hold it up here with me. But the thing is, man, if you're only willing to follow God into what you can handle, then this is all of His vision for your life that you'll get. You'll only get the little piece of it that you can handle. And if I was more creative and more of a famous pastor, maybe what I would do is have a forklift come on the stage. That would be crazy, with a really big box that I couldn't handle. I want to get it in your head so you don't forget. I sound ridiculous, but that's the point that I'm trying to make here, is what I think God has for you in so much of what we experience. It's not that we're not experiencing more of Him because He doesn't want to give it to us. It's because we're only willing to do it as much as we can handle it. And He's saying, maybe I want to bring you into something bigger. Maybe I want to give you something that you can't carry on your own, because I want you to experience my strength and my power in your life in a way that you've never experienced before. And come on, we can clap for that, because that is the Christian life. That's the Christian life. And so I think that this is so especially challenging for our culture, because we live in a world. We live in a world that says independency is good and dependency is bad. And if anything makes me uncomfortable, if anything makes me feel weak, well then it must just not be good. And so I think this is especially difficult for us. In fact, I would even say that the biggest thing, man, that is hurting our faith in our culture today, is that we only want a faith that we can handle. We only want a faith that's tangible, that makes sense, that doesn't lead us into anything difficult. And when we do that, we only get a little portion of God's power in our life. And so what do we need to do? Man, we need to learn how to walk in dependency on His strength, so that this year, what all of us can experience is a bigger package. That's what you want, right? What all of us can experience is something greater from God. What do we need to have that? We need to walk in His power. And we're going to get really practical here as we close out this message. Just a couple things really practically that we can do to do that. Okay, so here we go. Here's 3 things I'm going to give you. You can write them down. They're real simple. They're how we can actually live in greater dependence on God this year, so we can experience more of what He has for us. The first thing is this. It's that we need to step into what's uncomfortable. We need to step into what's comfortable. And I just mentioned this before, we are ultimate comfort culture, right? We want the most comfortable bed, the most comfortable shoes. I want all of that. We want all of it. And there's nothing wrong with that stuff. It's just that when I think about every time that I've seen God do something significant in my life, there has been one common denominator. And that common denominator is that it required me to do something that was outside of my comfort zone. I remember when I was in high school, and when I really first started to experience God changing my life, it was through a small group. I joined a small group as a high school student. I was able to get around some people who really loved Jesus and loved me, and man, it was life-changing, but that was so uncomfortable for me. Right? I know people think I'm extroverted, whatever, but the truth is I was scared. I was scared to be around those people, and it was uncomfortable, but I experienced God showing up in my life in a powerful way. I remember I made another decision that changed my life. After high school, I decided to not go to the college of my dreams, and I decided to stay here and take a part-time job at this church, and that was incredibly uncomfortable. My parents told me it was like, they were just like, you're dumb, you shouldn't do it. And I remember I felt so out of control, so out of my comfort zone. But again, man, that moment changed my life, right? That's what everything, I met my wife because of that. We're all here because of that. I made some of my best friends in my life because of the ministry I've been able to do here. Hey. So I also think about, at this point, I've been able to go to several different countries and share the gospel. I've been able to be a part of different things that God's doing around the world that I never thought I'd be a part of, and every one of them makes me more uncomfortable than the last one does. And so maybe for you this year, what's the thing that God would have you step into? What's the uncomfortable thing? Maybe it's you come here to young adult nights, but you need to be in a small group. Well, tonight is our small group kickoff night, and after the service, we're going to have a lot of information about new small groups that are starting this semester. Maybe that's a step that you need to take. Or maybe for some of you, it's that you need to lead a small group. You've been thinking about that for a long time, wondering, do I have what it takes? God's been nudging your heart. We're going to give you more information about that. You can take that step tonight. Maybe some of you need to come on the international trip to Ecuador this summer. You need to get to another place in another country and experience how God is moving in another culture. So when you think about that step, so first thing is we need to step into what's uncomfortable. The second thing we need to do, if we're going to experience God's power in our weaknesses, we need to learn to embrace weakness. We need to embrace weakness. And I'll just be honest that this is incredibly unnatural for me. I'm an Enneagram 3. I like to perform. I like to have success and results, and I like to look good. I like people to think I don't have any problems. I do have problems, and it's a whole thing, right? And so the whole idea of embracing weakness is foreign to me. I remember this wasn't that long ago. It was a couple months ago, and actually a couple of you guys were there with me. We started doing this basketball small group last year, okay? And, we've got this little basketball court that's in this neighborhood over there. And I remember one day, me and another guy that worked here, we said, well, this would be a great idea. Let's go have some call out some guys from the community and let's play basketball together. And, and I'm a pretty tall guy. And, so you might think that I'm good at basketball. But any of you who have played me in basketball know that I'm absolutely awful. I'm terrible. Like, I remember one time, oh my gosh. Remember this one time, Malik, you remember, we went and we played with these guys in this park, and they were passing the ball, and I just couldn't catch it. Like, it wasn't that I missed a shot. I didn't catch the pass. And I remember that day, I went home, and Jenna was there, and I sat on the couch, and I told her, I feel like a 5-year-old boy who just had his pants pulled down in front of everyone. Like, that's how I feel right now. And it was like the next day. I was just mad and upset and sad and small. And I was like, I don't even know what I should do. And she was like, you're a married man. And I was like, it doesn't matter, I didn't catch the pass. But I remember that moment. I felt so weak. That's my personality. And so honestly, when there's so many verses in the Bible about, like what the passage said earlier about embracing our weakness and about counting our weakness as joy, if I'm honest, that's a difficult thing for me. I think about this, James chapter 1, verse 2. He says, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. And so I think about weakness, and I think about joy and being thankful for these things, and it just doesn't line up for me. But what I am truly learning day by day, month by month, year by year, is that God He is stronger in my weaknesses than I am strong in my strengths. And the more that I learn to rely and depend on him in those things, man, the more and more I see of him showing up in my life. And so I'm learning to embrace my weaknesses. So we need to step into what's uncomfortable. We need to embrace our weaknesses. And this last thing is real simple and almost seems counterintuitive, but it's that we need to depend on God's strength for today. When we find ourselves in a place where life has given us more than we can handle, where we're walking in more than we can handle, oftentimes it can feel like there's this big mountain that's in front of us. And well, if you're going to climb a mountain, you know, you're not going to be able to, especially like I'm talking a mountain that takes multiple days to climb. We're talking like an Everest, okay? If I'm going to climb Mount Everest, I can't eat one really great meal and expect that to give me the strength to go climb Mount Everest. What do I need to do? Man, I need to every day nourish my body, every day come back to food for strength so that I can keep on climbing. And the same thing is true when you're living with Jesus and over your head. We need, there's a reason that Jesus taught us to pray in the Lord's Prayer, Lord, give us our daily bread and not our monthly portion. Because the way that God gives his strength to you is day by day. That's so important. The way that God gives his strength to you is day by day. He's not going to give you strength for tomorrow's battles. He's going to give you strength for today's battles. And this is difficult for us because, again, we live in a world where we're always wanting to think more about tomorrow than we are wanting to think about today. But see, what God wants to do is to each day give you strength for that day. And he's saying, hey, today it may feel like more than you can handle. It's not more than I can handle. And today I want to give you fresh strength, a fresh touch from me. Matthew chapter 6, verse 34, Jesus says, so don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. He says today's trouble is enough for today. And I love how he says today there is trouble. Today there is more than you can handle. But he's saying, I see it. Let's focus on today. Let's get through today. And then tomorrow I will give you what you need for tomorrow. That's what I love about this season of 21 Days of Prayer that we're in, is that we're learning as a church, as a community, to day after day come to God and say, God, give me what I need today. God, give me the strength that I need today. I think of those days, man, when we first started doing young adult ministry. I remember sitting in that floor each morning, literally just looking at God saying, God, please give me what I need today. I feel insecure today. I feel like I did when I didn't catch that basketball pass today. God, would you give me what I need for today? It's more than I can handle. I need you, Jesus. And so see, it's not true that God won't give you more than you can handle, but it is true that God won't give you more than God can handle. And it is true that God promises in every moment, in every step, even when it feels like more than you can bear to take, that he will be with you. That by his Spirit, he will strengthen you, and that day by day, he will give you what you need. And I just wonder if this year, if we will learn to get a bigger box, maybe something that we need a forklift for, maybe something that we can't handle in our own strength, I wonder what God could do. I wonder if we would stop putting God in the box of our own abilities, of our own comfort, of our own money, our own time. I wonder what he would do. If we would be willing to pray and say, God, all I have and all I am is yours. Lord, lead me even into uncomfortable places. Lord, lead me even into my weakness, because I know that you will make it strength. I wonder what he would do. You see, this is the gospel message. The gospel message is not self-help. It is not that we need to try harder and work more to live our way and earn our way up to God. The gospel message is that God was strong for all of us. That God sent his son Jesus to come and die on the cross for all of our sins, for everything that we've done wrong. And he rose from the dead, and he said, if you will just trust in me, if you will put your faith in me, then I will wipe away all of your sin. I will bring my forgiveness into your life and bring you into a relationship with me. And so see, the first step in living out what we're talking about tonight is to receive that gift from God if you haven't. To receive that gift of his salvation and his forgiveness and his grace. And I want to give you a moment. Maybe you're here tonight, or maybe you're watching online on YouTube tonight, and maybe everything's felt like more than you could handle. And maybe this message is a relief because you've been frustrated by feeling like I just don't have enough. But tonight I want to tell you it's okay to not have enough. It's okay to not have what it takes. It's okay to not be enough because God has been enough for you. And because Jesus and what he did on the cross is enough to take away all of your sin, to take away all of your shame. And he says, if you will just trust in me, then I'll do that for you. And so all around the room tonight, could we just close our eyes and bow our heads? And if you're here tonight and you say, maybe I've been away from God and I've been trying to do it on my own and I want to stop. I want his help in my life. I want relationship with him. Or maybe you would say, I've never had a relationship with Jesus. Maybe the version of Christianity that you thought existed was all about what we could do. And tonight I'm telling you, it's not about that. It's about what Jesus has already done and already accomplished for you. And tonight, if you want to receive Jesus into your life, to accept what he's done for you on the cross, I want to invite you just to pray a prayer with me. In this prayer, I'm not going to call you up here to the front of the stage. I'm not going to do anything to embarrass you. This is just a moment for you to tell Jesus, to invite him into your life, to receive what he's done for you, to receive his strength in your life. If that's you, you can pray this prayer with me. You can pray under your breath. God's not hard of hearing. You can pray this prayer with me. Just say, Dear Jesus, I confess that I've sinned against you. But right now, I want to give all of my life and all of my heart to you. I receive what you've done for me on the cross, and I give my life to follow you. In Jesus' name, amen.